when you have questions, the Q&A can happen during the presentation itself. So that's a talk, Burnout to Brilliance strategies. So let's kind of just dive into it. That's my chaotic life side, okay? So the themes of it that's going to go over, underlining and over and throughout it is parenting does get better. It truly does, right? I don't have to wipe a person's butt anymore. Like that is like such an amazing thing to be like, oh, I don't have to wipe the butt. Parenting does get better, but how are you showing up to that time and point when parenting does get better? Okay. Other theme is rest is not earned. It's part of recovery. And I go back to most professional women, they are very in tuned into their health. So if you go to a gym or if you follow a program, if you're a runner, if you're fill in the blank, there are rest days that are built into the program that allow for recovery. And we always been trained that rest is earned. So if you can go back to, I'm going to pull an all-nighter because I can do better on this test. And then I'm going to crash versus actually being taught the tool is like, if we can digest this information throughout our learning, then maybe we don't have to do that all-nighter, right? So again, rest is not earned. It's part of recovery. You can only control your actions and reactions to the situations on hand. And this is really key because I don't think people truly grasp this, For example, in my field, and I always will revert back to my field, I will have, and I've encountered this before, is that I will have death of one of my patients, but then the next room I have to show up professionally. And that is a very extreme example. But also, from a small example is my 15-year-old just texted me yesterday and said, why aren't you not picking me up at 12 when his school's down till 4? And you're like, but I'm still working. And you can only control your own actions. Next, address small burnouts, okay? And we'll talk a little bit deeper about this is because the small burnouts we don't want it to lead to this bigger burnout that we are so ingrained to talking about. But what are these small burnouts that we can actually start looking into our lives and saying, okay, if I can address this, then boom, I can show up to when it gets better. And lean into what you already know, okay? If you're an anxious person, and you are really anxious about safety, going back to you can control only what you can control. You can control the fact that, you have information at hand. You might have your pediatrician at hand. You can talk about safety because that's what's making you anxious. And then you can formulate a plan for that versus, being diagnosed as anxious and then putting on medication. So those are a couple of strategies and themes that you will see over and over again throughout this talk. The roadmap for the talk. Okay, we're going to define burnout, right? So again, going back to the professional mindset, I want to know, what am I talking about? I want to know what a burnout is. How did we get here? That is such a big thing for me. It's like whenever I want to learn about something, I'm like, how do we even get here where we are in a time frame that you are having this talk and we are talking about burnout? Define what a professional is. This was really a lot of fun when I was creating more when I initially was doing this talk. And I was like, okay, what exactly is a professional? And then let's really use this application of professional mindsets to parenting. I love this quote. Yeah, I know I kind of said it and I didn't realize I actually said it until I went on the Happy Human podcast. You can't empower someone by giving them a checklist because your situation, though we are coming as professional women or professional parents, we have that underlining thread that connects us. But my checklist can't work from your checklist. But if I give you options, if I give you support, if I give you understanding, then you have all the permissions to choose what works best for you. So burnout, let's kind of go down this road. Today's buzzword, or is a societal crisis. So burnout is a psychological syndrome that arises in response to chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by three main dimensions: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a reduced sense of personal accomplishment. Now, is that actually a societal crisis? So as a physician looking into it, it's yes. The long answer and the short answer is yes. You have 50% increase in professional levels of stressful jobs in healthcare and tech. There's 2 times higher issues of heart disease, sleep disorders, depression, anxiety, disrupts in work-life balance. 40% of burnout individuals report strained family relationships and decreased engagement with children. There's an economic cost to it, and there's a decreased quality of service. So there is definitely a social impact to it. So that's why this is so important in the forefront of treating it more like a disease rather than and treating the symptoms and the core of the disease rather than just saying that, oh yes, it's burnout, X, Y, and Z, fill in the blanks. There's actually been a history of burnout. Why do I start with this? Because just like as a physician, I would be telling you something about your disease or your symptoms. I like to make sure that you understand where we're coming from and how this is happening. So it started off in the 1970s, and it was a term popularized by the psychologist, Dr. Fredenberg. And it's a decreased emotional depletion in caregiving occupations. And then throughout the years, the term was actually formalized in the 1980s. In 1990s and 2000s, the research expanded beyond healthcare, and it was recognized as a widespread issues in diverse occupations, so just not limited to, the medical field or IT or anything like that. And then there is a significant acknowledgement in the workplace. So there's been actually a history of this. When we look at evidence-based research in burnout into the application of professional settings, there is a breadth of literature that says that, these are just small examples of it, but what all these studies are highlighting is that cause, effects, and models explaining burnout in a professional setting emphasizes the significance to workplace health. And that is so important, right? So, you guys have heard it, you're dispensable at work, but your health is not. And so it really is affecting health. So as a physician, I'm looking at it as, oh my goodness, my parents are being affected by it, because also I'm a very selfish physician and my clientele is my children. The children that I take care of, those are my patients. I want them to do well. I want them to have healthy lives. But if I'm not addressing the core issues, which is the foundation, which are the parents, then I'm actually doing a disservice. So this is why this topic is just so important to me and talking to you guys about it. With burnout, simultaneously was the evolution of the workplace. So we cannot just take burnout in the context of what was happening in our systems as we developed the workplace as well. So traditionally you had a 9-to-5 work day. There's a hierarchical structures, limited benefits, and then women were starting to enter the workforces. Women entering the workforce was actually one of the centennial events that happened was World War II, where a lot of men were fighting the wars, and then the industrial sector needed more labor, and so this is how women started entering the workforce. In 1990s and 2000s, there was a tech boom. Email revolutionized communication. And then with 2010 and 2025, and you guys have all experienced this, that COVID-19 really accelerated remote work and caused a focus of flexibility and well-being. And then if I present this in the next couple of years, I would add to the fact that what people are in the business world dealing with is remote versus in person, and where that balance is coming. So that would be the other big evolution of the workplace in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, when we've talked about there's a historical context, we talked about that it's part of a system. There's current drivers of burnout that is happening: excessive workload, inadequate support, lack of control, insufficient recognition, and poor work-life balance. So those are some of the current drivers. So now if you're looking at it from a disease perspective, is like, okay, this person has type 2 diabetes, but what was the current drivers for that? Food insecurities, prices of actual good healthy food being too high. There's food areas where there is food deserts that we call. And so then you kind of can look at it as more of an analytical way and say, okay, now if I can reduce some of these current drivers for that diabetic patient, then the underlying disease, so in this case, the burnout, could improve. There's been strategies to alleviate burnout: flexible work arrangement, wellness programs, workload management, positive work culture. However, there's still a disconnect that persists. Like there's still this gap, like the business and work people are doing a great job of trying to build some of these programs in, but the people who are actually burning out, there's a disconnect. So I'm going to go back to personally for myself, when working in the NICU, they have from 12 to 1, my healthcare system, what they decided to do was give us a yoga break from 12 to 1, and they would have yoga and massages that came through. Why did that fail for physicians? Because disease does not have a time. I mean, sometimes I would barely get the opportunity to have a lunch break, then going down to the wellness part where my company had recognized that this might help me. So sometimes there is a disconnect of what the company is giving you to what is happening. So then in my case, what might have helped maybe would have been, another scribe or another person to help to do that aspect of it. Now let's add the other part of it. So we've talked about the historical context of burnout. We've talked about the workplace evolving. So, but what is a professional, right? Like we talk about professional, but what is a professional? So at first, it actually meant a public vow. So this is coming all the way from Latin, that's often in religions or schools. So later it was described with people with special skills and knowledge, usually from education and training, who follow a set of rules that do what's right in their job. Then the term professional got a little bit clearer in the Middle Ages, especially with guilds and universities. Law, medicine, and religion became known as jobs, needing special knowledge and actual moral rules. And so then the development of those sectors came into the forefront. And then the term actual professionalism. So in the 19th and 20th centuries, the modern idea of professionalism expanded as industrialization led to more specialized occupations. Professional organizations and groups defined qualification standards and ethics for professionals. So again, when you enter to being a professional, you've done a public vow that you're going to learn a skill that later that you're going to transfer it into a job. And that skill over and over again, you're going to cultivate with degrees, with however you cultivate in your own profession. And you're going to kind of give back to society what you have been skilled at, because the society has actually created a pathway for you to become a professional. And that public vow is, okay, once I become that, I'll make it my job, and then I will give back to the society that has cultivated it. Kind of cool, huh? I always was like, oh, this is kind of neat. Now I can understand my mindset as opposed to just being a professional. So again, I love talking about historical context. I love talking about how we have come, because it gives you a better understanding of how you've been developed as well. So the developmental of a professional, the industrial revolution, educational systems. Now you've got organizations. Like for me, I am an American of Pediatrics Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP. I belong to that group. There is certain standards that I have to follow for that group. There's workplace dynamics. We talked about the evolution of the workplace, technology, globalization, cultural shifts. And then now we have this ability to do mentoring, coaching, and to help us develop in becoming a professional. So you're like, well, that's all great. How is this going to help me parenting? We have to understand our mindset first, right? We have to understand where we're going with all of this. When we talk about a professional mindset, and there's plenty of surveys that are done. There's plenty of surveys you might have taken as a job, into seeing how you fit into your workplace, what kind of qualities that you're bringing. All of this has been developed. And what they're looking for on those professional surveys is to really see where your mindset is. First, teamwork and collaboration, excellence, accountability, adaptability, integrity, communication, time management, continuous learning, empathy, and emotional intelligence. Those are all captured in all the surveys that we've ever been given. Now what I've added below this is like, okay, that is my mindset. And guess what? My mindset has been cultivated since high school. Like, right? Like that is a long time to have a mindset being cultivated. Now, when we talk about it, it's like, okay, instead of fighting this mindset, let's lean into it. We know teamwork and collaboration, and I'm going to go and expand. So the next 20 minutes is really kind of expanding on all of this. Weekly meetings, village, we will identify what does excellence mean? So now with our mindset, our excellence has been, oh, I get a certificate, or I get a degree, or I get a promotion. But the excellence we really have to say is, okay, we need to learn that rest is not a reward. Rest needs to be part of this because we need to focus on health. And then I'll tell you, this is not like, oh, do self-care. I'm actually going to give you concrete ways to do this rest. Accountability, showing up is enough. Guys, I have 4 kids. Do you know how many times I've had to sit through another Christmas concert? And you're just like, I can't do this anymore. But the thing is that for my first child to my 4th child, I'm just showing up. And sometimes that really is enough. Adaptability, tagging each other out. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Integrity, creating family values, communication, understanding each other's way, time management, technology. Guys, I use AI all the time because it allows me as a tool, it allows me to create and to be that. So we shouldn't be afraid of technology to help us get to our goals. Continuous learning. Oh my God, parenting is never ending. And then empathy and emotional intelligence. What is each other's love language? This is where the professional mindset meets parenting. All right, let's kind of really dive into all of these concrete things that I really would like you to walk away with. My husband and I have done weekly meetings for years now. Just like how you do a weekly meeting for your workplace, there is like for here, I started this lecture saying that these are my objectives. So again, you're just used to this. So why not just apply it to parenting? There's clarity. There's weekly touch points, ensure all team members share priorities. So here's the interesting thing. Initially, it started off with just me and my husband because my kids were young. Now, with all their activities and their after-school activities, we touch point with we have a family meeting every Sunday, and we say, okay, what is happening this week in your life? Like, what is happening that is not being covered, right? It could be school-age children. It could be tests that are coming up. My kids are going through a standardized test right now. And it's just for all of us to be aware. And it starts cultivating that families are also teams rather than this is parents, this is child, and we're going to kind of dictate and stuff like that. And there is hierarchy, because I always laugh that I am your Indian mom. Even my neighborhood kids know this, right? But it's also getting them involved in this conversation of family. Regular check-ins to prevent misunderstandings and maintain focus. You guys do this in your professional world all the time. You can do it through emails. You can be like, okay, let me clear this up. Let me make sure that I understand XYZ is going on. So weekly meetings, this is the reasons for weekly meetings. Accountability framework. When we do weekly meetings in our profession, we have a structured progress reporting. Team members commit to deliverables in a supportive environment. So how do you apply that to parenting, right? Like you're like, okay, well, my child is 3 or my child is 5, like how am I going to get them to be engaged in this? But remember, and this is how I'm going to go even more, is developmentally, even if they sit there with you and you have said, okay, you know what? This is a time that we're going to be together as a family to go through. That is enough developmentally for them at that time. Okay. Problem solving, right? Again, my youngest is 10, my oldest is 19 now. I have a 13 and a 15, and some of these problem solving things that we work in our weekly meetings as professional is like, you know what? I can't get you to this place at this time. How can we kind of formulate this? Professional parental growth. We talk about this in our profession all the time. How are we fostering as management? How are we fostering professional growth for our employees? What we're going to change is we're going to do parental growth. How are we taking these things that we're learning and applying it to as our kids get further? Okay. And this is really important, family crest and values. So when you start working at a company, you know their vision, you know their mission, you kind of know what they stand for, you kind of know what they believe in. Why not do that for your family? And it does not have to be over thought out. It's very simple. For me, one of the biggest things that I want when my child leaves at 19 or 18, I want them to have the joy and love of reading. That is very important to me. For my husband, what's important he is a big physical fitness fanatic person. He's done so much in that aspect, but his thing is that I want each of my children to try something out of their comfort zone just once. And it doesn't always have to be physical fitness. It could be exploration of food. It could be exploration of, name it. He just wants them to have this ability to try something out for a month. My brother has done this also with his kids. They're also 2 family physicians and they're raising 4 kiddos. And they actually have a family crest. And they said, these are the values that we want. And some of the values that they have highlighted is things that, we all want to instill in our kiddos. Be kind, be happy, try something new. So don't complicate this and just say, okay, at the end, when, parenting is a journey, what do I really want to instill? Like, what is one thing that I would like to pass on to my kiddos? Okay. All right. Again, I cannot stress this enough. And these meetings, please understand, it could be from 20 minutes to an hour. Now that my kids are older, me and my husband go to local breweries and do it. We make it fun for ourselves, okay? We do the first half with the kids at home, and then we're like, peace out, we're going, okay? Because the other underlining part of it is we are reconnecting with each other as we're going out. And we have built in a system where even if the week is gone by and we haven't seen each other, There is a built-in time and a commitment to each other. Again, when you have weekly meetings on your schedule, you show up for them, right? Everything else stops and you show up for them. That is the same kind of mindset that we need to start applying to parenting. So I really want to reiterate, oh my goodness, getting tongue-tied here, themes. Parenting does get better. Like, it really truly does. That saying is valid, but it's how you are showing up. So if you're completely in your parenting journey, having been able to give the tools, or you're completely being stressed out throughout it, when it gets better, you might not be able to enjoy it at that time to your fullest because you haven't been allowed the opportunities or even the permission sometimes to be like, okay, I need to kind of start addressing small burnouts. What does that mean? And that actually, let me kind of do the other points because I want to really focus on small burnouts right now. Again, rest is not an errand, it's part of recovery. You can only control your actions. Lean into what you already know. So lean into this professional mindset that you already are familiar with. Addressing small burnouts. What does that mean is that when we look at infant and childhood development, which we will do in the next couple of slides, is that we realize there is times where we are just in survival mode. We cannot get things done. We need to outsource. And what we aren't taught as women over and over again, and I see this, I've been doing this for 6 years now, is that ability to ask for help. And that understanding that when we're asking for help, we actually are making an investment at that time because things will change. What we are always been kind of, our mindset has always been done is that, oh, this is just going to last forever. Oh, I will need a nanny forever, or I will need help forever. The thing is, yes, you will need help, but that help changes. And to have that adaptability, again, going back to the professional mindset, to have that adaptability to recognize, oh, you know what, this is a short thing. If we invest in this, then things are going to get better. So again, going back to the business model, if the business realizes that we can't achieve this goal because these are the issues that we're having, so let's just kind of invest in outsourcing those issues because then we can meet the goal, then the business itself is going to get better. Outsourcing is delegating, and when we talk about infant and childhood development, you will start noticing that things do get better and your help is changing, that at times where you think, oh, you know what, I might not be able to do this because it's fill in the blank, okay? Anywhere from I don't know who to ask to anywhere from, oh, it's too expensive. But to make you guys see, so true example, when we had our second baby, we were debating about a live-in nanny, a nanny or daycare. On paper, the nanny cost us about $200 to $300 per week extra on top of what we would have for daycare. However, that $200 to $300 allowed me and my husband to have some flexibility. I wasn't running with my head cut off to get to the daycare right on time, for that ability to be like, I have to be there at 6, otherwise they're going to keep charging me $1 more for that. For my kids, when I walked in for my kids to be fed, my kids aren't hungry. My kitchen is cleaned because I like a clean kitchen. That is one of my biggest things. And I walk into a household where I can spend, 10 to 20 minutes of just decompressing with my children rather than being, okay, now I'm going to get stressed out and going there and then coming and, just pulling your hair out. Fast forward now, I'm raising 4 boys. These are 4 teenagers, right? I cannot feed them enough protein, you know? So what do? So we don't have a nanny, but we do have grocery services that come through it. We have Costco that gets being delivered. We have one lady that comes 5 hours a week. Right now, we've gone from the fact that we don't have this nanny that is for 60 hours. Now we've changed it to one person who comes 5 hours a week who just meals preps for us to feed my kids. Because what is the alternative, right? The alternative is that we're going to pick up fast food. We're just going to make things easier for us because all we're doing is running around, and my kids are investing time. I'm investing time in their physical fitness, but we're complementing that with fast food. That doesn't make sense. And fast food is expensive. It adds up. So instead, it's like, okay, this is the outcome we're looking for. All right, we're just going to hire someone that comes 5 hours a week, that all does the prepping, all the snacks, all the stuff. So all we have to do is grab and go. Because we're not just investing now, we're also teaching our kids how to eat healthier. Okay. So again, I wanted to spend a little bit more time on that. All right. Now, what does outsourcing look like, right? This is just some of the stuff that you can outsource. Child support, right?
So,
Yeah.
hey, sorry, I just wanted to interrupt for a second because I know we have a few like caregivers, I think, of adults here too. And I know your husband's dad
Yes.
needs additional caregiving. So I'd like
Yes.
to know your like what you guys have done on top of being
Yes.
parents to help
Oh
with
my
his
goodness.
dad as well.
You mean the sandwich generation?
Yeah.
that, so here's the deal too, right? First of all, we had to change my mother-in-law's mindset, to be honest with you, is that we had to, so she was always a homemaker all her life. And she was like, okay, I can totally take care of him. But what was happening was she herself as a caregiver was getting burned out. So what my father-in-law does, and Medicare pays for this, is he actually goes to Mondays to Fridays to senior daycare. And Medicare is in our state pays for that. And it's like, okay, if we can remove some of that burden from my mother-in-law for that, then she can have those 8 hours built in time to do what she needs to do. We did look under a CNA. We have looked at CNA help and an organization. However, it's just been not consistent at all. But we actually had to like talk my mother-in-law into that this is okay, because now those 8 hours, what she gets to do, she gets to go to my kids' school and, and like volunteer there. So these are the things that you really have to look at and say, again, going back to what is stressing us out right now, what are some tangible solutions that we can have? And with those tangible solutions, let's start figuring out what's going to work best. Does that help?
Yeah, and I know you're probably going to dive into this, but I just want to say Sonal has taught me so much about this. I just want to talk on like my own story basically, but I personally do not make a lot of money. I did not go to school to be a doctor or a lawyer or anything big. So I don't make a ton of money, but what I've like learned is that stressing about cleaning my house or keeping my house clean or having my kids taken care of during the day, I would rather spend and like budget each month for somebody to come clean my house so that's taken off my plate. And maybe I have less clothes that I buy or I don't get my hair done. And it's just like kind of rearranging to help with my everyday needs, right? Um, so I think I
Yep.
just want to note like it sounds crazy. I think we think as a society that this is like a luxury, having having a brand new car and having is like normal, but having a house cleaner is a luxury. It doesn't make sense, you know?
Yeah. So when I want to dive into it, and thank you for pointing out that there is additional caregivers in there, and those adult caregivers, hopefully you can take some of this context out. I wanted to look at from a pediatric point of view, and again, going back to giving you ways to create support, okay? And so looking at from the infant to adult development and what truly are the priorities there. So the parental mindset, let's look at, instead of taking that professional mindset and applying it to parental mindset, 0 to 3 months. This is officially called the 4th trimester. And this is times of newborn physical development. So how the next couple of slides are going to be featured is going to be telling you about the newborn physical development, the newborn mental development, and truly what should be the priorities of parents during this time, okay? Because I know you guys might be in different areas of development. So I wanted to capture all of it. So the 4th trimester is very critical for sleep and sleep for the mom, okay? This is very important. And I live in this field for the 4th trimester, but I really want to emphasize, how do you protect? You have to protect a mother's afternoon nap. There's so much medical research behind this, but how do you protect it, right? It's as simple as telling your support system is like, hey, I need to nap. I need to take this nap. I need to be by myself to take this nap. And you will think it's like the best sleep you've ever gotten. But that is what the priorities of the parents are. We hyper focus on the priorities for the newborn infant, and we will buy, all the materialistic kind of stuff for it, but we forget to look at what is truly the foundation. So priorities for parents is sleep, and is as simple as family members knowing it, that, hey, you know what, I need to sleep this afternoon, and, grandma, come on over, hold the baby while I sleep, okay? 3 to 12 months, this is a time where literally these dependent newborns go to, oh my goodness, I'm just going to discover the world and walk. So what do the priorities of the parents during this time comes? Safety. That's very important. I mean, safety for car seat with newborn, but you don't usually, take the newborns except from doctor's visits. So, but baby proofing, sunscreen, car safety, environmental safety, water heater, firearms, to learn about safety. Like, again, I say, if you're someone who is anxious, okay, fine, you're anxious. There's also good anxiety and there's also bad anxiety. And we always focus about the bad anxiety, but the good anxiety is that you are anxious about, I want to make sure that I provide good sunscreen for my kiddos. And what does that mean? So there you are going and saying, oh, I'm going to research this. Introduction of food. How do you want to introduce food? We have a saying in the pediatric world that food is fun until they're 1, meaning we don't need to have, we can explore food. We can explore all these tactical things that happen that actually complement infant development, and not be like, oh my God, I need to puree everything, or I need to buy the biggest gadget. But no, it's like, maybe we got to rethink some of this stuff. Introduction of language. If you guys are bilingual, trilingual, or, I even met a family who spoke 4 language. When we introduce a language and we say, okay, now read to your infant or read to your child, remember, they mimic a lot at this age. So when you're reading, read with you facing them, because then they can start looking at your mouth and seeing how words are being formed. Now we started focusing also on parental physical health. This is where the self-care component comes in, right? When we talk about self-care, a lot of it is physical health. I used to be a runner. I used to love to run, and I couldn't understand how moms would run with their kids with the strollers, because that was my free time, but that's me, right? I've had families go, I've had mothers say, you know what, I really just want to go to the gym by myself. Let's figure this out. And this is going back to the weekly meetings, right? I've had dads say to me that, hey, you know what? I just want to go for a bike ride. Great. Go for a bike ride, but let's kind of put it in and build it into a system where you can go to a bike ride versus, having this discourse saying, oh, you told me I could go for a bike ride. Yeah, but you didn't don't you realize that there's like 3-4 events that are going on tonight and I need your help? And now then there is like this miscommunication, and there's this like, well, you didn't let me do this, well, you can't, why don't you understand? And there's all this like bitterness that goes back and forth. I start with dates, coffee, brewery. I say those things because when your kids are this little, sometimes it's just harder to find, grandma coming over or family members coming over. And coffee and breweries don't sound so intimidating. A coffee date is like 15 to 20 minutes. A brewery could be at most an hour. It's not like a dinner date where it's a couple of hours. But just having this ability to start reconnecting as partners as well. Then you have these formative years. These are formative years. We call them formative years because the brain is developing so much. Priorities for parents. This is how you start teaching your children to be part of the team, right? You start age-appropriate chores. 1-year-old helping put toys away. That's very easy. 2-year-old dusting with a sock. 1 and 2, they're starting to learn their colors. Employ that. 3-year-old sort the laundry. Put them in different shapes. And then screen time. Really kind of addressing what screen time looks for your family. I know what the AAP says, but there's also what the AAP says and what we really want to believe, and then there's a reality of the world, right? So if you're like pulling your hair and you have not given any screen time to your kids the whole week, and you going to dinner and you just want to give them a screen, it's okay, guys. It's not going to be the end of the world, right? So, but please do realize that screen time is very, very limited at this time, but use it as a technological tool to help you out, not your child, help you out, okay? 3 to 6 years, all right? This is where they're having better hand-eye coordination, can dress and undress themselves. Use that ability. They have dramatic expansion in language. They can understand basic reasoning and understand of time and routines. So foster that. Again, going back to age-appropriate chores, use technology. They have really amazing things out there where they have a digital way of saying, okay, all these chores that the kid does and they earn and all of that stuff. That's really fine because now you're making them understand, okay, chores is a job that they're doing to help their family out. And on top of that, you are also teaching them that if you do this job, you are rewarded. Now, whatever reward system that you have for them built in, there is so much value in that as well. If you have it as monetary, you can teach them about finance. Even at this young of a level, I think we underestimate what kids can do. Screen time. This age is really important for screen time to actually limit it. And also, what are they watching? There's some really good quality shows on YouTube that are good for the kiddos. They teach about physics, they teach about dinosaurs and stuff like that, because we realize the internet and all of these devices are very prominent. But let's kind of really be more proactive about what we're showing them for screen time. Family meal time, to incorporate this. There's so much data and value for this. But people get stuck on that has to be dinner. No, 3 to 4 times a week, whatever your schedule allows. It can be snack, it can be lunch, it can be dinner, it can be breakfast. It literally is the basis of it is 20 minutes of sitting down and coming together and saying, how was your day? And allowing that conversation to flow. So people just feel that it has to be dinner, and that's what we're taught. It actually is not the case. They can start understanding schedules, color coding schedules and stuff. 6 to 12 years, okay? This is a mnemonic that we've used over and over again, BOARD. So it stands for being creative, outside play, read a book. So that's why I like BOARD. Exercise. And this is more than just playing outside, right? And did you do something useful for the household? Did you do something that helped mom and dad out? Okay. When we look at the extracurricular activities for you and your family, what is really the goal of this? Okay. If the goal is that you really do recognize your child has great potential on whatever sports, and you're going to invest the time, money, and energy to doing that, beautiful. But let's make again, going back to the professional mindset, let's actually add in ways that we can objectively say, okay, is this working for our family? Is this not working for our family? And all of us understanding what the goals are. This is a great age to get these kids, even as young as 6, to get introduced to foods, about helping, making, prepping. We used to do it on Sundays as well. And chopping, all of that stuff, and getting them involved in the actual prepping of the food, so then they start understanding what health really looks like. And this is very important, especially in this day and age when we talk about the teenage years, is because there's a huge social media out there of boys particularly being what we used to think about anorexia in girls. This is what we are noticing as pediatricians, is that boys are becoming, quote unquote, they want to bulk, or they want to cut, and they might be taking too much creatinine, they might be taking too little protein. So when you actually start from 6 to 12 years understanding what food and health goes like, and you can teach them that, hopefully this part of it is, gets a little bit more of communication. Adolescence, this is a tough year, guys. It really is. I really advocate for kids getting a job, and job does not mean you have to get a job outside the home. You can cut grass, you can mow neighbors' lawns. My kids over the winter have shoveled the neighbor's driveway. That is a job. What is a job? It's committing to something and showing up to it. So you're teaching them about commitment. Again, social media, this is very important for this age, to have open conversations with them, and really to get them to understand how social media and technology could be used as a tool, not as something that is a negative aspect of it. Family mealtime, this is really important for this age, because you open communication. Again, family mealtime does not have to be lunch or dinner. It can be snacks. Understanding family financials. Yes, when your kid says, I want to X, Y, and buy this, now at this age, it's like, okay, well, understanding what the value of that product might be, and do they really want to buy this? They get money from grandparents, or they want to save for something, really getting to the core of financials at this steps. And then as they get closer into high school, what are they thinking about next steps? What is happening for them? And then lastly, my 19-year-old, the way that we have done it is we've actually taken more of a mentoring things, because you want them to make the mistakes, but you always want to know that there's safety in you as parents. So a lot of communication, a lot of mentoring. There are times where I've found myself this year wanting to solve some of these issues and really kind of resisting, because, he needs to solve them for themselves. So this is me. I'm going to stop. And I know I did a lot there. This is going to be available for you guys. And please ask me the questions. It's not been perfect, I tell you. We've had our rocky moments, but what has grounded us is the weekly meetings. And I cannot emphasize that enough. It's grounded us as parents. It's grounded my family down. It's grounded expectations. It's grounded us to have this ability to communicate with each other. So ask me the questions, please. And I hope that was helpful.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you about the dynamic between mothers and daughters, and during teenage years, how hard it can be. What are some of your advice for parents regarding that?
Yeah. First of all, that sucks, to be honest, because it is hard. It is hard. Everybody was like, oh, didn't you want a girl? And I was like, I love their cute clothes, but then you have Justice and Forever 21, and you don't want to have the abilities to, like you're always like walking a fine line, right? You're always walking a fine line. So honestly, one of the things that, I'm going to stop screen sharing too. if I know how to. One of the things that we have employed, and I know my other parents have employed, is called the bubble. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
The bubble. Okay. So the bubble means that you can come into this space and whatever, basically this whole idea, tell me everything, but we're not going to judge, right? And the teenage girls, what happens is that everything becomes like, if you're doing X, Y, and Z, you're wrong to doing X, Y, and Z, versus explaining to them or actually asking them what they feel with it. So the bubble is, we spend 20 minutes in this bubble, whatever is said, you can curse also in this bubble. All right. You can do that, because what you're trying to train them is to have this open line of communication with you. Right. Then when they are 18, 19, and they are being put into the world, they know they can always go back to mom, and mom is not going to be judgmental on what their decision is. You have to bite your tongue. It's very hard. And you have to kind of ask them, what are they thinking about the problem at hand?
Okay.
Okay. So it's the bubble. It literally is the bubble. You sit in there and you can talk to me as was, whatever happens, you are not going to be punished for this. What has happened with the families that we have done it, the children have requested, oh, could we go in the bubble, please? Because they want to tell you something, but I don't want to be punished for it. It's a hard world out there.
I wish I had known about this. I mean, she's going to be 20 in August. We communicate, but those years when she was, well, this is her last year of being a teen. It wasn't easy, and and it was hard for her to listen to me as well. And people kept saying, "Oh, it's just mom and daughter thing," but she she's not home. She's in college, but that seems to be like bringing us closer together. And she would tell me like what's going on. But I just wanted to ask that in case somebody also has a teenager daughter, and then mom daughter issue situation. And then in terms of like mentoring, obviously it cannot just be like the parents. Can also be like, aunties, uncles, and anyone around them.
And it's if they agree with your values too. You have to define that, right? Me and my brother have difference in technology of screen time. So it's great because that's identify your village, but also they have to kind of align a little bit with your values as well. And then sometimes you just have to give it up. I know when my kids go there, their access to screen all the time, and you're like, oh, okay, but I don't want them to not have a relationship with their uncle. Like it's that simple. So
well,
that's what it is.
Believe it or not, I could not go inside my daughter's bedroom for 3 years because she could not clean her room. And for the love of God, I tried bribing and a lot of things, but it just didn't work out. So I'm like, okay, I am not going in there.
So I actually have one of the things that I do recommend as a cleaning lady, if you're ever going to do that, because that's something that I agree with Alexis. So when my kids are older now, if their room is not picked up, they will come back from school and clean it up themselves because they didn't allow my house to be clean. So there are ways that you can get around it.
I think it was a phase too, because now she's a clean freak. So it was just a phase, I think. But I really enjoy this presentation. Thank you so much. I wish, I had these tools as I was raising my daughter, but they're still useful, even now that she's going into young adulthood.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a weekly meeting with her, right? Just put it on the schedule to be like, hey, we're just going to connect on whatever day. And that's just going to be our catch up, And like for my oldest, his IQ is amazing. His EQ sucks. And so we really have done he has it on his schedule that he needs to text his brothers. Like we have that on the schedule. And so him and my oldest, like my 15-year-old, they've Snapchat 200 times, and that was an accomplishment. But you're like, okay, so sometimes you have to kind of see what their qualities are and help them. And that's the mentoring part of it too. So yeah, grab dinner and FaceTime. That sounds like a good idea. What other questions can I answer for you guys? I know we're a little over time, but I'm good. So I have about 20 to 30 more minutes. So please ask away. You're welcome. Yeah, please, just small burnouts. I think that's what leads to the bigger ones. And if we can really be proactive on our small burnouts and understanding development of children and recognizing what the family needs at that point is very, very helpful. So,
do you have like resources that we can go to? Anything on parenting, taking care of our parents, taking care of our kids, or apps even?
They are definitely, so I don't recommend one or the other because with everything, if I let you understand it, you can find the ones that resonate with you the most. So for example, I'm just going to go back to kids because was more for the kids part of it. We do very well in our household with the visual apps or visualness of chores and stuff. However, there's some households that have everybody on the same calendar, and they do very well with that. What I would advise is look at the outcome that you want. What are the steps to get there? And what is the tools that you can use to have this particular outcome? So if we can look at it that way versus, oh, this app is going to be the best for me, and give you a general thing, that doesn't work all the time. It's like, let's look at the outcome, what we're looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for visiting us and for the presentation and for sharing with us. I think as we wrap up here too, like the thing that stuck with me too, rest is not earned, rest is not a reward, rest is part of recovery. And I think that touches on all of us, whether we have kids or not, whether we're taking care of parents, young ones, or just trying to take care of ourselves. So I thought that really that hit home and taking care of those small burnouts. So thank you for enlightening us with all that. It was super helpful. And I think you've had the best Zoom background of probably any speaker I've ever had the pleasure of talking with. It's truly the best.
It's real.
And it's real. That's the thing.
It's real. Yeah. As actually, I will be, if you see that ledge over there, or orange ledge right there. So that is, my 15-year-old has gotten into this a lot. So he's actually selling those online now for any saltwater fish people. So it's like, good for you. Like, let's dive into this talent you have. He's 15. Let's talk about finances. He's in debt with his parents already because we put the up thing for the investment. But this is the stuff that it's fun to do with them, right? It's like, oh, okay. And then you teach them without even knowing it. And you're like, oh, that's easy. So, or easier.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Dr. Patel, for talking with us and sharing with us. And thanks all to everyone who joined us today here at the ERG too. We love seeing all of you. And take care. We'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone.